And welcome to Tomorrow. My name is Jamie Higginbotham. I am so glad you could all join us today. What an epic day. It's going to be a lot of fun for a show. It's going to be a community show, and if you would like to join us, the link is down below. Click on that link and you can join with video, or if you want to just do audio, feel free to turn off your camera and you can join us audio only. We're going to be talking about 2024, some of your favorite moments, some of the things you want to see Jared Isaacman do with NASA, some of the things that you think is going to happen with Starship, and then maybe a little bit of forward-looking stuff into 2025. Now, before we get started with our show, we do have to feed the monster. It is a requirement for all YouTube channels to feed the algorithm, and I know everyone hates hearing this. You hear it on every channel, and everyone's pissed off, and you have to fast forward 2 minutes into every video, but welcome to how all of this works. Please feed the monster. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, add your comments, make them useful. That would be super appreciated. On that note, let's go ahead and get started. We have got an epic panel. Dave is done. He just walked out of scene. He doesn't want to do this anymore. I've got a Dutta below me. I've got a Ryan and an Aravale. I don't know which way to say it.
I don't either.
Don't either. It's like when I'm called Phantom Empress when I'm on other YouTube channels. I'm like, it's not. It's not Phantom Empress. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was considering doing was changing my YouTube or my Twitter handle from Photon Empress to Photon of the Opera. I thought that was pretty good too. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
I don't care what you call me. Just don't call me late for dinner.
So the show I just described and the thumbnail are very different things. So let's go ahead and get started with what Ryan had proposed in the thumbnail, because I would feel bad if we actually didn't start with that. So Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, let's do at least one bit of news this week, and then we'll get it out of the way, and then we can have fun, right? Well, I brought it up here. It was kind of out of the blue, during the week. This press release came out from Virgin Galactic saying that we've partnered up with Italy's Civil Aviation Authority to conduct a spaceport feasibility study. And it's like, okay. So you scroll down a bit, you see what they're talking about. Essentially, Virgin Galactic wants to see if it would be possible to work with Italy to build up a spaceport for their suborbital flight regime to do what they've been doing at Spaceport America now for a few years. Recently just stopped doing that to move on to their quote-unquote Delta-class spaceships, to do that in Italy. And personally, as a European, this is really intriguing to me, because it feels as if Virgin Galactic now wants to move into an age of just having a fleet of space planes and a fleet of motherships in order to conduct these missions essentially anywhere, right? Anywhere. Jamie's raised her hand. Jamie, what have you got?
They barely fly out of Spaceport America right now. Why do they need another spaceport? I mean, forgive my ignorance, but Spaceport America's been around for what, 10 plus years at this point?
Yeah, but I feel like maybe this is just me, but personally I feel like Spaceport America isn't really. It's a bit of it's a runway in the desert, right? Am I wrong? Is it just a runway in the desert?
There's some ground support and stuff that you need in order to be able to make that happen. But yeah, basically.
No, come on. Right. There's a whole terminal building there. They spent a lot of money on that facility. There's a hangar. There's a terminal.
They do it They do it out of Mojave, and they don't have all of that. So you need ground support to support the fueling of the rocket, or the fueling of the plane. There's the minimal things that you need. There's more things that you need to make it comfortable, like more like riding on an airline.
I feel like they're putting the cart in front of the horse here. Aren't they doing the exact same thing that Virgin Orbit did? Oh no, really? I'm sorry, but is this not putting the cart in front of the horse? You gotta.
I think the difference between this with Virgin Galactic and then the similar thing with Virgin Orbit is that the person who founded these companies really likes one of them, and the other one was kind of a spin-off which he didn't really care about that much.
Hang on, here's Ross. Ross has the exact comment, which is, I worry that Virgin Galactic will run out of money before Delta is ready. Never mind another spaceport. Like, they need to be focused. They should be laser focused on bringing their systems into operational status, right? That's all they should be worried about right now. They shouldn't be worried about other spaceports. They shouldn't be worried about any of the others. Laser freaking focused on operational status and getting those paying customers to space. And then the next thing they need to be laser focused on, critically important, is driving those costs down so that mere mortals can afford this stuff, because they are going to run out of customers fast.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, do we know who's paying for this? Is it like the Italian government chipping in, or is it totally from Virgin Galactic?
I'm not 100% sure on the percentages on each side, but it's a feasibility study at the moment, which they are working with essentially the Italian FAA to see if this would even be possible in Italy. But my counter argument to they'll burn through all their customers is, sure, you might burn through all your customers if they're going to see the same thing every time, which is what they're going to see if you only fly from Mojave. They're only going to see the desert if you fly from Mojave, right? What if you want to see the Alps? What if you want to see other places around the world, right? What if you want to be able to observe our planet from various locations without having to go to orbit for a few days, right? What if you want to see these things? Assume that maybe even just a fraction of your total customer base wants to be able to see multiple locations around the world, but now suddenly, instead of selling them an flight, you've sold them 2 flights, 3 flights, 7 flights, maybe that is their way of expanding their number of customers, as in they can fly from multiple locations, they can see multiple things, because that's, if you want a zero-G experience, go on the Vomit Comet, right? The point of these things is to be able to see our planet from space, and you'll be able to see it from multiple angles, for lack of a better word, if you have multiple spaceports.
But that's not a long-term viable strategy, right? If you want to become a long-term viable space company, any company, Virgin Galactic or otherwise, is going to have to create a long-term plan for doing something like point-to-point. And once you've enabled point-to-point, yes, now I'm going to need these additional spaceports. But again, they're putting the cart in front of the horse. They can't do point-to-point yet. Like, they should not be spending even time on something like this, in my opinion, right? They should be figuring out how to get to space, figuring out how to enable point-to-point, figuring out how to enable that next generation of traffic. If they're only going to go up and right back down over their site, and that's their entire business model, they've got maybe 10 years, maybe 10 years when that will be viable before they'll be supplanted by someone else.
I have to think that this was in their business plan from the beginning. That like Virgin Orbit, the intent was to launch from all over the place, wherever you can get customers. And in fact, a little bit of insight into what the end of VO, we had at least 3 or 4 launches that were lined up in Japan, Australia, and Brazil that were supposed to happen after the UK, right? People got scared. We lost money, etc. We couldn't make it happen. But the process of getting a spaceport certified to be a spaceport takes a very long time, and particularly if the government of the country that's involved has never done this before, there's a lot of uphill challenges because they don't know what the hell they're doing in order to be able to make this happen. And you have a lot of people digging their fingers into all of your processes and all of your equipment and all of your procedures to make sure that you're on the up and up and you're doing things safely and this and that. It's like incredibly, it's like a colonoscopy basically, and it's incredibly invasive.
Too soon, Dada.
It takes a long time and a lot of energy, and having to do that ahead of actually being able to fly, a manifested, paid-for flight is critical before you actually move all your stuff there and get on the ground. I mean, I hear
I hear. Yeah, look, I get it. All of this stuff takes time. It's way more complicated than just going, hey, I need some runway over here, right? Like, I get that. I understand that. But also, if you run out of money before you can do anything, then none of this makes any sense. There needs to be, it does not seem, I do not understand new space companies that do not have a sense of urgency. And I just do not see that sense of urgency with Virgin Galactic. I don't see it with Blue either. I don't understand them either. Similar, like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? And so it's this same, like, okay, cool. You're doing a study. You're diluting your mind share and like going over here to do this other thing, when what you should be doing is laser focused on operational flight. Make this thing operational, make this thing work. And Ryan, I'm excited for you. I don't think everything has to be here in the US, right? Like, absolutely, we need to get some aerospace in Europe. 100%. We need to get the whole planet excited about this stuff. But if they go bankrupt before they can do anything, then what's this study do?
Well, the question is how much they're spending. Is this two
Opens
people
up
in
a
an office?
spaceport for the next company.
Yeah, maybe. But it's not even like they're going to go bankrupt because of this. That's not my point. My point is they only have so much runway, of capital before they cannot afford to continue development of their space plane, right? And so all of their efforts should be on the whole company should be rallied behind, let's get this thing to space. And it like
I really don't understand, and I have zero insight or input on this. I don't understand where their current capital stream is coming from that they're able to not be flying right now while they redesign their aircraft and make new aircraft and likely multiple airframes before flying. Like, why aren't they bankrupt already? Where's that money coming from?
David has a good point as well, which saying not streaming the last few flights doesn't help either, not showing what they're actually trying to achieve, which I also agree, right? Like, they are an experiences company, right? Like, you pay a premium for a premium experience. And someone had mentioned earlier, like, hey, there was a repeat flight or repeat passenger on New Shepard. And like, okay, cool. I get it. You got $1 billion. You want to go to space again. Absolutely. Right. Like, Jared went twice, right? Like, I get it. But, you're already looking at a small user base. And then so you've already got a small part of the pie. And then if you make that another like 1% of a small part of an already small existing thing, that's not going to be enough to keep a company going. You have to figure out the long-term sustainability of this thing. And it feels like the natural, and maybe obviously I don't know anything about this company, right? Or I don't know anything about their internal like plans or policies or what the vehicle's capable of or anything like that, right? So I don't know. I could be just talking out of my butt here. But it feels like if you want to become long-term sustainable, point-to-point is your future, right? That's what everyone wants. I want to go from New York to London in 45 minutes.
Or it should be 10 times the cost of a hot air balloon ride.
Sure. Yeah. Or you drop those costs way down. I don't see them making progress on either one of those things. And so I'm very, very worried for the company. And I say all of these things out of love because I want them to succeed. I want humanity to get excited about going to the stars and going to space. And like, I want point to point to be a thing. I want people to think about aerospace. I want people to think about space travel when they're trying to get somewhere else. Why do I have to jump on an airplane to get to Australia from America? That doesn't make any sense. I should absolutely be able to jump on a Virgin Galactic flight and go from California to Australia in 90 minutes or less, right? Absolutely. Now, I don't think even their Delta series has ironically, the Delta V. I don't think they have the speed to make it anywhere like that, right? Like, because you need a lot of horizontal, you need 17,500 miles per hour. And I don't think they're getting up anywhere close to that, right? So, yeah. And Fazilla, and actually this is one that I've been posting on X a lot. And I'm actually, another company I'm very excited for that actually is like It's like they're laser focused on this one thing and figuring out, well, it's two things. They're laser focused on two things. One, how to bring back supersonic travel via a craft. And the second thing, how to change the certifications so that they're allowed to fly. And it's Boom Aerospace could be more favorable for London, New York quickly. Right? Because like that's a supersonic plane. That's effectively bringing back, oh, hey, I'll show it really quick, right? I got my Concorde. So... Right? Like, so I've just been going on. We'll send it around in the room, right? Okay, you all clearly know my opinion. Like, Dave, what do you think? Am I crazy? I mean, yes, obviously I'm crazy, but like...
No more than normal. I'm with you on Boom. We've been watching them very carefully at work. Of course, we have a slight connection to them working for one of their investing airlines.
Is it the one that I moved my status to?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And their CEO's been very following the Elon Musk, very public on his social media, and it's him, not his PR team. Mm-hmm. And their next flight, they have a I can't remember what they're using as their chase plane now. But they have a mini Starlink on the chase plane, and they are live streaming internally now. But he plans to live stream their first final subsonic and probably first supersonic flight. And he had an interesting tweet this week because they ran into a big problem in the aerospace world. They wanted to take an existing engine and use it in their Overture aircraft, their big one. And nobody would bid on it. So Boom had to design and build, or is in the process of designing and building their own supersonic engine. And he said it's interesting now that we've done this, maybe we should have planned it originally doing it this way to parallel develop the engine and the airframe, because we're learning things from the airframe we need for the engine and how it's going to fit. That sounds like some other company we know.
Turns out you can't just swap engines midstream.
Yeah, but they're a 0.856 Mach as of Thursday this week, and they may beat a 0.9 Mach, 9 point something before the new year, and supersonic early next year.
And they're laser focused on their goals, right? They're two goals. The two goals: one, you got to build the thing, but two, you have to change regulation over the United States so that you can fly the thing, right? Two very important goals, laser focused on these things. And I feel like Virgin Galactic is just like grabbing at stuff, trying to figure out what their business is. And it's like your business is get your paying customers to space, figure out point to point. Those are your goals. Figure those two things out. Put all of your might and your effort behind those two things and do it with a sense of urgency. Arguably just like Boom. Like Boom Aerospace is fantastic to follow on X if you want to see what the future of aerospace is going to be. And their CEO interacts with you too, because I'm like, they're all like, oh, we'll be flying in 5 years. And I was like, BS, no you won't. And he's like, actually, here's why. And like, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's real outgoing and very detailed about what they run into, and like they just had a test flight abort that they were a no-go on launch because it was 1 degree below their temperature limit for flight because it was too cold at Mojave, and they were like, nope, we can't go. And they didn't. They just said, yep, we're following the rule, following our test cards. We're going to wait till tomorrow, and then they had a perfect flight the next day. And then he also did if you read like 2-3 weeks ago, they had a huge problem with they have a oscillator that they stick on the wingtips to induce flutter into the aircraft, and they bought it from somebody, third party. And apparently that company didn't do a real good job on the control software. It had dropouts and anomalies in the control loop. And what should have taken 4 months took them 2 weeks because Boom sat their engineers down in plant with the OEM and redesigned the whole control software. And they put it on the airplane last week and flew it, and apparently it worked fine. That sounds like another company we all know.
Keith Tagg says, look at Concorde. It was great while it lasted, but heavily subsidized by both UK and French governments. It was probably never viable as a commercial venture. Point to point would likely be the same. Fundamentally disagree. This is the difference, not between technology stacks, but between a commercial business plan and a government business plan, right? And so, point to point will be difficult, but when you're in a commercial market, you are forced to figure out how to reduce the price of these things so that they actually make sense for the consumer. When you're government and you heavily subsidize these things, you don't have those same market pressures on you, and you never really improve ever. And so, I think it's a business difference, not a subsidy difference. Like, you have to have that mindset of like constantly changing, evolving, and driving prices down, and being good for the consumer, in my opinion. Aravel, how about you? Go ahead.
The advantage of the government subsidies is the government is on your side for being able to open up regulations such that you can travel supersonic over land.
Yeah, there is that problem too, and point to point is going to have the same supersonic problem when you think about it, right? Because arguably worse, because you're coming in a slightly higher Mach number, a little bit. So it is a regulation issue. I don't know that you need necessarily the subsidies. I don't think they hurt, but you do need to have that kind of commercial mentality and not the government will pay for everything. I think the best thing the government can do is help to deregulate a lot of this stuff. I think we're handcuffed in regulation, and that's not helping us.
No, the government subsidies put pressure on the regulations.
Yeah, the system's broken. The whole system's broken. Yeah. Aravel, am I crazy? How crazy am I? And why am I crazy?
So when I first heard this, my first thought was that it might be a really good idea because there are a lot of wealthy people in Europe, a lot of wealthy people in like the Middle East area who might go and do it in Italy. But then if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, a flight to getting over to the US really isn't, it's nothing for you. So I do agree with Ryan's point that like if I had to choose a place to fly suborbital, it'd be nice to fly over like Italy and not over the desert. But I think ultimately I agree with you that get it down where you have the spaceport already built first, and then if you have the money, expand to other places.
Yeah.
I just thought of this. This opens up a market for people that maybe aren't allowed in the United States.
True.
I mean, you may not be wrong. Although it is a U.S. company, is it not? Actually, I don't know that.
That doesn't mean you have to be a U.S. citizen or allowed in the U.S. to fly on it.
No, but it might make it complicated for them. I have no idea how that would work. Ryan, I know you
their ITAR stuff is secure.
Ryan, I know you started off the story. Did you have additional comments?
You can fly as long as you're blindfolded. you can't see anything. No. I agree with your points that they really should be focusing on having a spacecraft that is operational over, let's spread out really thin and have 1 million spaceports all over the world. But also, when's the last time a small sat launch made national news in the US, right? When's the last time a small sat launch... hang on, I just dropped my phone on the floor. And that's where all my audio is coming from, so let's plug that back in. Yeah. When was the last
Ryan,
time
did you drop your phone? Did you drop your phone into water or soda by chance?
No, just onto the floor. Just onto the floor. And yeah, okay. Let's go back 30 seconds and pretend that never happened. When was the last time that a small sat launch was talked about, generally as a, did you see that thing that happened at the weekend, right, in the US? Has that ever happened? I don't know. I'm not from the US, but that's definitely happened in the UK when Virgin Orbit came over last year. Yes, it didn't end very well, but it still was, implanted into the minds of the nation, right? People were talking about space. People were acknowledging space. People, dare I say, might even be getting excited about space because it was something that was coming to our country. That had never happened before, right? So maybe this is just, maybe it's just a cultural difference, right? Because in the US, you have Falcon 9 launching every other day, right? We don't have that here. So maybe this is just the excitement of this is amplified in this part of the world because we are just not fortunate enough to have what is happening in the US and in China, etc.
Do you see that ever changing? Like, is there no moment where, how do I word this? Like, it's effectively a U.S. company bringing their rocket over to you. Isn't there going to be a moment where everyone's like, well, yeah, but we want our own?
I don't know.
Hopefully.
Maybe. The thing right now, especially over here, is that we're still kind of caught up in the small sat boom. You know, like everyone in the US has figured out small sats. That's not the future. You know, ABL has just transitioned to being a defense contractor. You know, everyone else is basically going bust. Over here, we're still like, yay, small sats. Let's make a small sat launcher, because why would you take a train to work if you can take a taxi or whatever for some reason, right? So we're behind that curve. But it is, I would love for us to be able to do our own suborbital, you know, tourist flights in that sense. But I don't know if that will actually ever happen, or whether we're just not in that part of the curve yet. I don't know.
Dada, did you make your points made?
Yeah, I think so. But I hope we get to that point, because I wasn't on the ground for more than an hour in England before I was being called dirty English names because I'm interrupting somebody's overtime pay with our safety exclusion zone.
Like, wait. How are you interrupting their?
In order to do HAZOPs, we had to close off a couple of businesses, and they couldn't operate at night, and they were relying on overtime, and they were upset at us arrogant Americans.
All right.
For the most part, that excitement was phenomenal. Like coming in, we were like the ballers in town, walking down. Oh, you're the Americans! Yeah, it was great. We got free drinks and.
Well, they love you until you take their money away.
Well, yeah. I hope they got paid. I seriously do.
Well, it's kind of. Well, that's a different topic. Maybe that's for
a little late
after
now.
Dark.
But, but yeah, there was palpable pride in the fact that the payload came from there, and was collected from. It was collected from a couple different countries, and we actually had a crew that had to go up to Scotland to do something with it, and like it was an interesting time, and there was a lot of people that were very excited, clueless, wholly uninformed, but very excited about seeing a rocket launch from their own soil. So that kind of excitement is hard to drum up, but I think that would be awesome if more countries could get into that. Then it would be easier to excite people about exploring the cosmos.
I don't think excitement is a bad thing, and I think getting people, thinking about this stuff only helps the industry as a whole. So like, I'm certainly not opposed to that, but that's also not a business plan. Excitement's not going to keep Virgin Orbit in business. Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt, certainly, but like,
Galactic either.
Did I say Orbit? Sorry. Too soon. Space Mike has the right idea, which is what do you all want for Space Christmas, which is a subtle way of saying, hey, we've beat this topic to death, let's move on. So let's do that, which is, there's a high probability that Jared Isaacman will be the next NASA administrator. I don't think he's been actually appointed yet, so always a chance that won't happen. But assuming it does happen, what do we want Santa Isaacman to bring to NASA? Right? What changes? Like, I don't think we've had truly like a businessman running NASA before. It's always been politicians or engineers, but never someone who like understood business. So based on that, what would you like to see Santa bring to NASA? Ryan, we'll start with you.
I think full steam commercialization on as much stuff as possible, because firsthand, Jared Isaacman knows how commercial space works, and he knows the great benefits of commercial space. Just look at the Polaris program, just look at Inspiration 4, right? But again, like all of NASA's stuff has to be confirmed by the Senate. So then you have to go back and you're like, can you convince the Senate to do this? So it's like the elephant in the room is SLS. I really don't know what to say about that, because I think potentially the goal is to scrap it, but I really struggle to comprehend how the Senate would let NASA do that, because they'd be slashing jobs across the country, right? And at the end of the day, this all comes back to politics. But I really think his leadership is going to, NASA has been slowly shifting towards commercial for the last decade or so, right? I really think that's going to be a sharp turn and a proper, we're never going back. It's commercial. Commercial is the future. Let's just go this way as far as we can. And by going to the market, that will start to bring costs down, and hopefully that will try and bring NASA's budget under a bit more control, because right now it is a lot of spending. SLS is just hoovering up money left, right, and center, right? So maybe hopefully that's where that will start to go.
You may be in luck. It seems like we've got an administration that's more and more not caring about politics.
I mean, that is the other side of the story.
And I'll throw one for that with Ryan's comment. Get NASA out of operations and into research and development, which is where they came from. That's where government type money can be useful, is doing research that then becomes applied to the commercial side. If you go back into the 40s and 30s, where NACA was researching wings and engines for airplanes, they weren't building them. They weren't even planning on building them. They were just doing the research to come up with new technologies to feed over to the industry side. NASA's gotten away from that in many places. They became operational during the space race, and that changed their whole outlook and their operational view.
I feel like I should disagree slightly in that NACA may not have been operational, but I feel like NASA was operational from the beginning, right? Like, you look at the Mercury program, there was absolutely operations that occurred starting with the Mercury program, right? Like, NASA designed the idea of having a ground-based launch flight control system. Right, because they could have done it all on the vehicle, but they realized that we don't have the compute power for this, and they created the operational system we use to this day. So I'm going to push back a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Mercury, because you go back to the Von Braun and the Goddard and the early military and civilian rocket development, not manned space flight. That was a little different. That was really developing technology, not developing product.
Aravale, what do you want to see Santa Isaacman bring to NASA?
So I would love if he did a commercial lunar orbit transportation program called the CLOTS program. And the idea would just be put out an RFP and say to commercial companies, give me a proposal to take humans from here on Earth to lunar orbit. And if Lockheed Martin and Boeing want to bid SLS and Orion, they can. SpaceX could do a Dragon and a different HLS to get there. Maybe there's an option for Starliner plus Blue or something, who knows? But I feel like there are so many options to get us to lunar orbit, much cheaper than SLS. If you open that up to commercial, then suddenly the cost of the whole Artemis program comes way down.
I love the name of your program, CLOTS.
I just made that up right now.
It's a fantastic name. You would basically not have NASA pay for SLS if Lockheed and Boeing wanted to fly it. Is that what you're getting at?
If they couldn't, I would. If they couldn't do it cheaper than an alternative competitor like SpaceX could do it, then I would say, okay, no more flights. We'll just have SpaceX launch a Dragon, transfer the crew to HLS number 1, fly it to lunar orbit, HLS 2 goes down, back up, and then just reverse the process, and you save a few $1 billion on your mission profile.
Although you could open it up to anyone, right? I mean, there is a potential world where Sierra Nevada might have something.
You never know.
Yeah, it wouldn't be what they have right now, but I don't know what it would take to convert what they've got right now. That
Right.
could be
Don't
kind
sole
of
source
cool.
it. Open up to anybody, but I expect SpaceX will still probably win because they're way ahead of the game there.
Yeah. That I would love to see Klotz. And then Gateway's gone then, or you keep Gateway?
I would get rid of Gateway. I think everything that we do on Gateway, I'd like to see happen on the lunar surface because that's where all these countries that are in there with us, I'm sure they like being in lunar orbit with us, probably have an astronaut going on the surface, but end of the day, we all want to be on the lunar surface. So if we could build a base there, that would be a much better use of that funding.
I often look up at the moon, especially when it's like a half moon, and I envision a day where on that darkened side of the moon, you would actually be able to see city lights from the colonies that we've got up there and be able to look up at the moon and realize that there are people working and living on the moon. I think that's very exciting.
That'd be amazing.
I have other space friends who they hadn't really thought of that before, and they're like, no, that sounds awful. Like, I want to be able to look at the moon as it is now. I'm like, well, if that's what you want, then we can make no progress ever, right? Like, you should want to have city lights on the dark side of the moon. Well, it's not the dark side, but like the eclipsed side of the moon. Yeah.
And bonus, no more people not believing on the moon landing because
you can see the lights.
Right.
No. They'll still. No, it's all cinema. It's all fake.
It's a projector.
The Earth is still
Projector.
flat. Come on, we just had a YouTuber or an Xer go down to Antarctica to prove that the sun stayed up 24 hours because the flat earthers wouldn't believe it.
Didn't they bring flat earthers with them?
Yeah.
I thought that was the whole.
Yes.
That was something called like the final experiment or something like that, or maybe that's And I thought the whole thing was there were like 3 globers or whatever they flat earthers call sane people, and and then 3 flat earthers that no one could, manipulate the data or do something that's fake, right? I didn't realize that had already happened. Are they there? Like,
they posted on X this morning or yesterday. Yes.
And what did they say? Did they go, oh, it's all fake? The Earth is indeed flat?
The sun really did stay up for 24 continuous hours.
It's not going to convince them.
I can find the X.
Yeah, it's not going to convince them. It's all right. So, all right. And Dutta, what did you want Santa Isaacman?
In the spirit of 12 Days of Christmas, to do shit that no one else can do.
So nuclear space.
To whatever that means to anybody, to do what industry can't afford to do, to do what industry hasn't yet figured out the right players to bring together to figure out the physics or the designs, like just all the things that no one knows how to do yet.
So, I mean, I would argue that was kind of NASA at its best, wasn't it? Back in the day when they were figuring out the things that didn't make sense for businesses to do.
There was a time when NASA collected the brightest minds in all of the industries to be able to figure out all of the problems that nobody knew how to approach, and came up with a solution that was open and available to everybody in the public, because that's their edict, and they were able to give that benefit to everybody. I don't think a lot of people know that the semi trucks, the cowlings and all that stuff on semi trucks that make them more aerodynamically efficient, that came from Edwards Air Force Base, from NASA research at Edwards Air Force Base in the early mid 80s, late 80s. Like, who would work on that? Who's doing this? And it's like like they figured out that if you change the shape of a wing, it changes the characteristics of the wing, the stall speed, the lift capabilities, the drag ratios, like all this stuff. And to Dave's point, back in the 30s they were doing this. They had wind tunnels where they were able to make a wing form and then study the effects and the drag, and like they characterized all of these different wing shapes, and now everybody uses them as an industry standard. And there's a lookup table. You want high drag? Cool. This is the wing form you use. And it's so easy now to be able to come up with a wing shape that's got one profile at the middle, and one profile at the root, and one profile at the tip, and one profile on the winglets. Like, all of this stuff they figured out very, very early on, and now it's just Lego building blocks that everybody can put together.
Well, they're working on supersonic too.
Yeah, and just the number of things that nobody thought to figure out, and it's all publicly available now for everybody to be able to pull the pieces that you need to be able to build the business that you want, and then being able to figure out nuclear propulsion, electric propulsion. Can you imagine ion thrusters that would actually give you something? Like, with that kind of brain power and the money that NASA had behind it in the late 60s or mid 60s, we would be unstoppable.
Jonathan said, so there are two back-to-back comments. The first one is Superman says, when someone said Ronald Reagan was out of touch, he mentioned that his generation gave us air conditioning and a moon landing and many more things we need that kind of NASA for. And then Jonathan replied with, they invented a pen that you could write upside down. The Russians used a pencil. Life was simpler then. Fun factoid, NASA did not make the space pen. And using pencils in space is actually very, very bad. And no one wants to use pencils in space because when you write, you get the little fragments that go everywhere and they can short out your electronics or do bad things, get in your eyes, whatever the case may be. The pen was built by a company called the Fisher Pen Company, I believe, or Fisher Company, something like Fisher. Fisher Pens, yeah. And it was designed by a private citizen who saw this, understood this issue, and he developed this pen on his own dime and then sold them to NASA for $1 each. So, yeah, that's a fun. It's a fun story. It's a fun the Russians just use a pencil. And in all fairness, they do use a stick on Soyuz.
Well, that's because they can't reach.
Right. NASA actually did. That's the real story and the real funny one. NASA did spend a fantastic amount of time and money figuring out how to get the consoles close to you and figuring out the vibe and making it so you could touch things. And the Russians just handed them a stick and they're like, poke it. which they do to this day.
Well, they still light the rockets with a match.
Wasn't it NASA that figured out that if you match the refresh rate of the screen to the vibration frequency of the person sitting at the console, that you can actually see something?
Dada, you just gave Ryan ammunition, and I'm not sure I want to complete this because Ryan is about to get all excited. Do you know what program they figured that out on? That's right. The Ares 1 program is actually where they figured that out because they had a problem with the solids where the solids were going to shake too much and they couldn't read the displays. And that's the program where they realized if you just flash the displays at the same frequency, they lock right up and you can read them just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ares.
So there you go. There you go, Ryan. I gave you an Ares. I gave you one Ares win. One Ares win.
But you can take that to anything you want to use it for, like drag racing, or you got these big V8s and they make all kinds of if you need to read something, you just flash it at the same rate you're vibrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we figured that problem out.
All right, let's move on to what I think will be the last topic of the day, which is. So I was going to talk about your favorite moments of 2024, but instead, actually no. Let's do that one really, really fast, and then I want to end on what you're excited for in 2025. So, Aravel, let's start with you. What was your favorite space moment of 2024?
Well, booster catch, but let me put that one aside. I'm going to say a different one for. I really liked Flight 4 of Starship with the little flap that wouldn't give up. Seeing the camera feed cut out, and we're all like, "Oh, it's dead." It made it really far, and then, "Oh my God, it's back!" And I was just sitting there in complete shock, watching the NSF stream, and we're all just "Yeah, that was just amazing." So
I got to tell you, me too. We were sitting in the control room watching that feed, and we were all like, "Oh my God, it's still going." Fun little factoid, that entire camera feed was running through my console in launch control. There was a thing that we had to fix. And so like everyone watching it, launch control, everyone at SpaceX, everyone in the public, if my computer went down, so would that feed.
Step away from the console, don't get near it.
Yeah, it was very much that. It was like, I will not breathe on it. I will not breathe on it.
Don't accidentally hit the spacebar with your boob.
Hey.
That's great.
Okay, hang on. That's a reference to it wasn't my boob. There was it was my
You had
greatest
an excuse. They were new.
Actually, they may have been. No, they weren't. I think this was 2019. Maybe it was something like that. For those who don't understand this reference, there was a Elon event. It was some Starship event. It was my greatest failure and greatest success back to back. First my failure, then my greatest success. He was doing some update. I forget what it was. He had the PowerPoint deck on behind him, and there was a slide that was up, but they forgot to tell the slide to repeat. And so it was like an animated video, and like it just stopped and went to black, and they're like, can you make that repeat? And so we normally have the keyboards and mice that control the PowerPoint decks turned off. They've got power buttons on them, so we turn them off so that you can't inadvertently mess with the deck. But then we've got them there so that if something goes wrong with the clicker on stage, we can override the deck from back of house, right, from Video Village. And so we turn on the keyboard. We turn on just the keyboard, not the mouse. And then we back arrow and it would loop, and then we back arrow and it would loop. We had to do this like 20 times, right? Like it was annoying, but we got it. And the audience didn't realize anything was going on, and it was fine. We get further along in the presentation, and this is before we had the production trailer. So it was all in just like flight cases. So everything's really crammed together. And so I'm the one calling the show. So I'm on headset and I'm calling things, and I'm standing, my back was starting to hurt a little bit. So I lean over and I put my hands on the console and I brush the space bar on this now active keyboard that we forgot to deactivate after that particular slide. And for those who don't know, when you press the space bar in PowerPoint, it advances to the next slide. And if you just hold down the space bar, it goes all the way to the end. It just goes whoosh, and then it goes bong when it hits the end. And all of that made it to the screens behind him and on air. Awesome. But not my first rodeo. And so we had a backup deck, and I normally would never, ever touch the technical director's console, this video switcher, the thing that they change feeds on. But I didn't even wait. I just reached up to Mix Effects 2 and I said, cut in the backup, and I slammed that bar down. And within seconds, so it clearly, this huge mistake, just whoosh, bong, and then 1, 2, whoop, deck comes right back up exactly where it was before, as if nothing had happened. Greatest failure, and then my greatest success, back to back.
Self-induced success, I like it.
Yep. All right, so fun story time's over. That's normally it. That's a little taste of what you get in After Dark or the post show or whatever I feel like calling it this week. So, all right, Aravale, we had your story. Dutta, go ahead.
Got to be the best rocket launch this year. Joe Bernard finally launched his meat rocket, so. Cool.
Yes.
I'm glad you got a Joe Bernard in there. He also had, he was doing something else with recently.
Well, that's his active control rocket. He had a Wagyu steak on board to cook. And it worked.
Yeah. That was the other thing. It was Wagyu, right? Like, he didn't go for, like, low, inexpensive meat. He went for top shelf.
Roll out.
Dutta, how about you next?
Favorite moment is video of plasma all the way down. That's
the first time? The first time with the little flap that could?
Yeah. The little flap that could was fun, but the plasma all the way down was a big deal. So kudos to you and your team for whatever part you played in that.
I yell at people. I would say that was mostly avionics and structures that got that one going, right? Because that That was mostly them. We just made sure that people could see the bits, but they actually made the bits go.
Well, the fact that you had Starlink feeding backwards through the plasma that made it all work. I mean, that was huge.
That was pretty cool. I would have lost $1 bet on that one.
Yep. And
I think Aravale mentioned it, and I agree. Like we were just because the camera would like start to fuzz out, and you're like, oh, we've lost it now, and then it would pop back, and you're like, what? No!
Like little gaps in the act, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then like all the way down, and we were cheering probably just as loud as you guys were. It was pretty cool.
Spaceman says, I love how he blamed Jamie for stream problems jokingly, only to find out later that it was actually true.
Sometimes. Usually I am the source of the problems, not the cool things.
Well, I'll agree on the stream down, but I did give kudos to Jamie and her team earlier off camera. The shot of the static fire from under the OLM that lasted till the end of the static fire and the engine shutdown without self-destructing. Congratulations on absolutely amazing video.
Yeah, that one wasn't me. Like, it's not me for anything anymore, right? I managed the team, but it was absolutely my team that made that happen, and I was very proud of them because, like, that's a hard problem to solve. That, like, I don't think people comprehend just how much infrastructure had to stay intact for that shot to work. It was pretty cool. I was, and then like getting all the settings correct. It was kind of like I liken it to a little bit like that Apollo 17 final liftoff shot where they never quite got it for all the previous, and then they like that last one, they finally figured out the latencies and everything else and got that beautiful, it was like he had been working on that problem since the beginning. Every static fire, every time, a little tweak, a little tweak, a little tweak, a little tweak. We'll see if it holds, but like, I think he did a really great job. It's all done with mirrors. I mean,
there's a lot there.
Probably not wrong.
Dave, I don't think you went. I think you're last, right? Wait, did we do Ryan? Hang on, we didn't do Ryan. Sorry, Ryan.
No,
Ryan, you go.
No, yeah. Polaris Dawn Spacewalk, hands down. Just that shot from the nose cone of Dragon of Jared and Sarah climbing out the hatch, just cinema.
Stephen Lewis says Titan Copter. That
hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened.
And that's not going to happen for many, many years.
Are you thinking the Mars Copter?
It's maybe Ingenuity.
Persistence, maybe, yeah.
Or Dragonfly got the contract for Falcon Heavy, or Falcon Heavy got the contract for Dragonfly. That might be it.
So favorite moment is a contract? I mean, it's allowed. It's allowed. It's allowed. All right, Dave, how about you?
I think I gave most of mine was just all the imagery that SpaceX delivered, mostly because they're the people that have most on orbit right now. Just an amazing year for launches. I mean, everywhere. Certainly all the Starship launches, everything going out of Vandy and the Cape. All the launch operators had a dang good year this year. Now, if we could just get the FAA to issue the license, this sounds like I'm going to say SpaceX, to Blue Origin.
I know that my favorite bit is that Blue Origin is now saying, like, on their tweets, they're like awaiting regulatory approval. I'm like, it's not just us. Made me feel good. All right, let's close out the show with just really quickly, what's the thing that you're most excited for in 2025? Dada?
Somebody other than SpaceX flying?
Blue. I expect Blue will fly in 2025. I was pretty adamant it's not happening in 2024, and it's looking like I was right. But I'm very adamant it will happen in 2025. It may not be a flawless flight, but I think they'll get off the ground. Same bet I made with Dave Maston. They'll light the engines with intent to launch. Beyond that, I have no idea.
Maybe Rocket Lab will have a launch that sparks my curiosity enough to actually watch one of their launches.
Dada, you should watch one of their webcasts. You're a space nerd. You should watch one of their webcasts.
I think it's a point of honor at this point. He's
oh man. You should watch one of their webcasts. Space Mike said Haven Space Station. Let's see here. Space Matt. Oh, great. I've got two. Yeah, said Stoke Space Progress. Stoke Space is pretty interesting. Absolutely. Stephen Lewis says Dream Chaser ? Ryan, how about you?
Well, I did a poll kind of similar to this on my X feed earlier in the week. And speaking of Europe, I'd really like to see a launch from the UK. Just saying. RFA might have been doing it by now if their first stage didn't, spontaneously combust during a static fire attempt. But yeah, the community seems to think RFA are still the ones to do it first. So fingers crossed they'll get it done sometime next year, maybe in the first half. Summer would be nice, maybe. But anything at this point, I'm looking forward to anything. Just give me something. Just please, come on. Something, please.
Back in the comments, we've got Jonathan says the announcement that Jared is nominated as NASA director. Space Matt, Blue Origin getting to orbit. Colton is complaining about blue streams. Superman says having two starships approaching each other and low Earth orbit. Seb says spaceship catch. That's going to be, I think you meant starship. I mean, I guess it's a spaceship, right? Airville, how about you? What are you looking forward to?
So I'm not sure if it'll actually happen this year, but if it does, Neutron's first launch would be awesome. A little bit of Wallops love, so that'd be cool.
Yeah. Do they still have the Clomper fairing?
I think so. They keep changing it, but
Yeah.
I think it's back to the...
It doesn't look anything like the original design they came up with, but it does still do that.
Hungry Hippo.
Yeah, or Pac-Man.
Well, sort of, yeah.
And Dave, what are you looking forward to in 2025?
I'm going to say maybe on-orbit docking of two starships to do some fuel transfer in prep for lunar operations coming up quickly, and a lot more visibility of HLS development as we wind probably further into 25, and a second launch tower operational.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So lots of stuff happening.
I'm excited because we brought Space Mike on in 2024. He's been doing a great job. And I apologize for him not being on this week. Unfortunately, he's a little under the weather. He has been watching in the chat room, and we all hope that Space Mike feels better soon. It's really hard to be on camera and be under the weather, right? It's kind of soul crushing because you're trying to have like that energy and be excited, and you just don't. And so never want to force him on camera for that stuff. But one of the things I'm really excited for is giving him kind of the leeway to play with shows and do a lot of really cool things on the Tomorrow channel that we haven't been able to do in the past. The way I kind of describe the live shows is these are the dessert, but we haven't been giving you guys the main entree for well over a year at this point. And so I'm excited to bring the entree back and then also have the desserts. And so I'm really, truly very, very excited for what we're going to be able to bring to the table. I think it's going to be great. And on that note, I'd like to thank everyone who stuck with us for Just Desserts. These are all of the citizens of tomorrow who help to make each show happen week after week, month after month, year after year. I forget how many years we've been doing this, but I think we started, in 2008? Is that right? Yeah, we've been going for a while. I mean, we started as Space Vidcast and then nuked all of that and then redid it as Tomorrow. But we've been going for a hot minute. And it's people like you who help to make these shows go. And I've always thought it really important to make the shows be community funded and not do advertisements in the middle of the show, like sponsored ads through whatever, because that keeps us in tune with you and what you want to see. And when we're doing great things, then you reward us with memberships. And speaking of, a huge thank you to Dave, as always, week after week, gifting 5 memberships to Tomorrow Space News. So for those of you who just got a membership from Dave Avery, you will now be able to join us in our post show, which we will be heading to shortly. And then after the post show, so I had a little health thing happen this last week. I'm still getting over that health thing. I'm not feeling super great either. I'm good enough to be on air, but like it was really, really bad. So I'm not heading out today. I'm going to be stuck at home. And for anyone who knows me well, I'm terrible at being at home with nothing to do. Dutta will back me up on that. And so I will be I'll be building this on camera, likely on my Jamie's Bits. Either on Jamie's Bits or I could do it in the post show. We'll see. Maybe I'll start in the post show and move over to Jamie's Bits. I'm not sure. So on that note, I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. Now, these next few weeks, they're going to be touch and go for the show because we are entering the holiday season. And I would like to give everyone an opportunity to enjoy their family, enjoy their friends, and just enjoy the holidays. So it is possible that this will be our last show of 2024. Stay tuned to our X channel because I'll kind of let you know. It's possible that maybe one of us just wants to do a solo show and just hang out with you guys, or that there are no more live shows for this year. So follow us on X and we'll tell you what's going on with the shows from there. On that note, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you next time. Dutta can only wait for a short amount of time because he has to hit end.